Welcome to No Tourists Allowed, a podcast where two recognized travel industry executives with a combined 71 years on the inside of travel and technology give up their secrets to the thing everyone wants to do: travel better, pay less, and see more of the world. Here are your hosts, Mike Putman and James Ferrara.
Hello, everyone. I'm Mike Putman.
And I'm James Ferrara. Welcome to No Tourists Allowed. Welcome back, hopefully.
That's right. We're in our third season, and we really appreciate all you guys who have been loyal listeners and have been with us since the beginning. And also, we appreciate all those who have just joined. So please tell your friends to sign up at No Tourist Allowed or subscribe wherever you get your podcast, Apple or Spotify or Google, wherever.
Right up top here, Mike, I guess we should remind everyone that we are closing in on the end of our all-inclusive vacation giveaway for two. So when you go to the website, your friends go to the website to sign up, they'll see a tab they can hit to register for the giveaways. If you haven't done it for some reason by now, we want you to do it too. And that'll tell you various things you can do to get multiple entries in the drawing for a 4-day, 3-night, all-inclusive stay in Montego Bay, Jamaica. So who doesn't want that? And we'll be drawing for the winner in the next couple of weeks.
That's right. When we come back, we're going to take a short break, actually, for 3 weeks. And then when we come back, we will be drawing for that fantastic vacation giveaway. So make sure you go to the website, sign up, and stay tuned for more podcast.
So, Mike, so much of what we talk about on No Tourists Allowed, well, it's in the title, right? Is that we don't want people to be stereotypical tourists. And we do try to help our listeners travel better and in a more authentic way, as you like to say, and to create more lasting memories, to have real experience of places, to get a real sense of place, and not just stay in their comfort zone. We talk about all that kind of stuff. And recently, there was a great article, and I have to give credit, I think, to CNN for this. And it was titled, How to Avoid Being the Stereotypical Stupid, Loud American Traveling Around the World, right?
That title, by the way, is somewhat paraphrased by Jay. That was not exactly the title.
All right. Wait. It was How to Avoid the Stupid American Stereotype While Traveling Abroad. That's what I said.
Well, in so many words, yeah. And this was written and published by Kim Davis of CNN on July 1st, if you guys want to go read the article yourself.
Yeah, but I thought it had some really great concepts in it. Many of them we covered when we did our manifesto last season, and we've covered in one way or another. But just like the way Kim put it, and Mike and I have been, these are the kinds of things we talk about, and we thought we'd share with you. We're going to go through Kim's ideas for how to avoid the stupid American stereotype while you're traveling abroad.
And her first one was the one that got me. I thought was the at least the most entertaining. And it was, do not treat a monument in another country like a urinal. Evidently, like Jeff Foxworthy used to say, some redneck somewhere did this, but some stupid American evidently used a monument for a urinal. And that's an easy way to get tagged as a stupid American.
I think she was talking about that movie with Emily Blunt, wasn't she? Emily in Paris, that movie, where things like that happened. But the interesting thing in that movie was that everyone thinks, oh, she's cute, oh, she's charming. Well, that isn't always the response, right? Sometimes people think, oh, boorish Americans. So another really good general idea she had was to read social cues. I thought that was really important, to try to feel the difference between maybe who you are or the culture that we come from and the one you're visiting. And where this was really really stark to me was when I was in Japan. In Japan, people speak very softly. They are very, very polite. They really don't look you in the eye. And it's funny, in different cultures, that means different things. Maybe to an American, when someone's not looking you in the eye, that could be standoffish or disrespectful or whatever. It's the exact opposite in Japan. So you really have to sort of read and understand the culture. There, if you speak loudly, people are fearful, really, and even take offense. If you look them directly in the eye and you don't know them and you're not familiar with them, same thing. So, reading the cues and the cultural behaviors where you are is really important.
And also, I think, in a fairness, Americans are typically loud. So, one of our other points is just really don't shout, because a lot of people, especially in Europe, think that Americans are loud and boisterous, and at times we are. So just keep the volume turned down a little bit when you're in public.
And, read the language. Like if you're going on about something, telling a story, and you notice that people are not nodding, not asking you follow up questions, it might be that you've strayed into an area that makes them uncomfortable, right? And again, a cultural difference. So it's just reading the room, guys. Like this is a skill that we talk about a lot in sales and in lots of businesses. Be able to read the room. So she said, keep the volume down. We've sort of covered this. Also, be aware of your surroundings. If you're in obviously a house of worship or a private space of some kind, a Tony hotel or whatever, that's a cue to you also to sort of use your inside voice, as my mother used to say.
And blend in, really try to blend in and look like a local. So, one of the things that I see people doing, and especially in India and also in Europe to some degree, is wearing shorts. So, like in India, um, men just don't wear shorts unless you are playing a sporting event. So you kind of stand out like a sore thumb. And that's true for a lot of places in Europe too. It's maybe in the south of France, not so much, but in most places in Europe, you don't really wear shorts unless you're playing in a sporting event, playing golf or doing something like that. But it's always good to try to blend in too, because otherwise you'll be a target for pickpockets and other people.
Yeah, I love the way actually Kim turned it to that's another reason to keep your voice down because your accent could be a giveaway and make you a target, right? But she also said, I loved her sort of signposts or the things that give you away as an American. Apparently, our fashion, we wear khakis, golf shirts, sneakers, baseball hats, and white socks.
But I'll tell you now, the trend is just coming back from Europe. It is everybody wears sneakers now, as you would call them. I would call them tennis shoes.
Trainer.
Yeah, men wearing suits in London. I mean, they'll have a $3,000 suit on, and they're wearing tennis shoes now.
Yeah, that's the look. I see it everywhere.
Budweiser tank top, that's typically a giveaway too. No Budweiser tank tops when you're going overseas.
I see. I have a crop top. Is that okay? Uh, be curious was a great piece of advice and something that Mike and I have tried to say before too. It helps to win people over too, is not to be a show off about your knowledge, but instead be a sort of sponge and absorb as much as you can. Ask questions, be genuinely interested in a country, its people, its culture. And it's very flattering to people if they sense that from you. So I liked that a lot too. And to listen. And we've given this advice before also. Remember, God gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you should listen twice as much as you speak. That's still very good advice.
One other thing too, and this is something my grandfather actually taught me, is no matter where you are or how much money you have, if the cost is not posted, ask what it cost. Right. So if you're at a bar that doesn't have their drinks posted, ask. I mean, if you're, and James might not agree with me on this, um, but yeah, especially in taxis, like when you get in a taxi, it's going to be apparent that you probably don't speak their language. You certainly are most likely not going to have their dialect, and people can really take you for a ride. So something that might be a very short distance, they may charge you an extreme amount of money for that ride, which is a good reason to use Uber too, by the way. But always ask how much is it going to cost, and if the price seems unreasonable, get out of the taxi or don't have a drink at that particular place, because unfortunately, sometimes people do take advantage of tourists.
Yeah. I loved a phrase that she recommended, which is, "I don't know about this. Please tell me more." With a phrase like that, you are asking, you're respecting other people's wisdom, asking them to share it with you. I think that they will, in turn, um, respond with kindness and appreciation and believe that you are very wise, actually, for taking that attitude. So I like that. She also suggested something that we be street smart. And that means do a little bit of research before you go. Maybe read up on things like the most common scams or the risks in areas that you're visiting before you travel, so that you can be uh, street smart. And Mike's example of a taxi driver or a taxi ride, an overly long taxi ride, is a really good one. That's probably very, very common. Gosh, when you walk out of some airports around the world, you get attacked almost by the people trying to give you rides, unofficial, unauthorized rides, and you're just asking for trouble if you're not careful.
Yeah, especially in LaGuardia.
Yeah, right here in New York.
But I will tell you too. So James and I often talk about London, and it's certainly one of our favorite cities. But I was over last month, and I was with someone at a conference, and they went outside to make a phone call on their mobile phone, and it was at night, and someone came by on a bicycle and grabbed the phone and took off. And in a million years, I never would have believed that would have happened in London, which is really, I feel very safe when I'm traveling there. And I tend to let my guard down, but it sounds like even in, some of the most respected, safest places in the world, there's an element of crime against tourists, which you just need to be really have your mind turned on and not think you're at home.
Some of that research can be done just by, ahead of time, maybe reading the news in that country, or when you get there, scan the newspapers, make a little effort, and it first of all, it's obvious to people that you've made a little effort. You don't get left out of conversations. Then you know who the president of the country is, or you know what the major issues are of the day. You don't have to know everything, but just to familiarize yourself. We also always recommend to try to speak the language, right? You don't need to be fluent, but hello, thank you, please. Maybe I'm sorry I don't speak and the particular language, so on. The basics like that. And not only will it help you, but people will appreciate you for trying, for not being that typically boorish American, like, I'm going to come to your country and expect you to speak my language.
Yeah, and also, before you leave, learn how to say beer and bathroom. Those two things will get very far in your travels.
I like also this idea of being an ambassador, that when you go to other countries, think of yourself as, in some sense, representing where you're from. All Americans, New Yorkers, whatever. So I think that's important too.
Yeah. I mean, you want to be a good steward of your own country. So, and if you're from the South, you want to really show off how friendly you can be compared to our friends up north who are not quite as friendly.
um, what about her story about the underwear? Did you read that?
I did not read that.
So one of her the sort of tenets was, don't pack a lot of underwear. And she tells the story. She said, one of the funniest stories I've heard came from a friend who's a Swedish trumpet player. He roomed with an American while on tour. He said the man opened his luggage and exposed over 50 pairs of underwear. The trumpet player asked, "Why have you packed so many pairs of underwear for a 2-week tour?" The musician replied, "I wasn't sure if you had washing machines in Europe." Yeah. But, you've not leaving civilization probably when you're traveling, right? And so don't have these disrespectful thoughts. In fact, America's an amazing place, but there are countries around the world who do certain things better than we do them.
And this is one of the things I have spoken about this before. Is when I travel, I tend to travel a little bit lighter, and if I'm going on a trip that more than a week long, I'll usually take a week's worth of clothes, and often find a place to either do the hopefully do the washing themselves, do the washing for me, rather than just paying a hotel rate. And these places are called fluff and fold. So when you're in a foreign country, if you Google fluff and fold, which is not necessarily a phrase that we use in the U.S., at least I wasn't aware of it. There are lots of places that do that where you can drop your laundry off. They'll launder it. You can come back and pick it up, or they'll deliver it to your hotel room at a really a reasonable cost as compared to hotels.
When during the pandemic, when we started to go to contactless payment in the United States, it was kind of a new idea here, but it wasn't a new idea in the UK or Europe. They've been doing it for a long time. And we've talked about this before too. Trains, there are high speed trains all over Europe, in Spain, in France, in the UK. You can go on a 200-mile-per-hour train connecting London to Paris. For the last 30 years that's been there. Yet America still doesn't have a high speed train network of our own. So, get your head in the right place. We're part of a global community. We play our role. We're certainly a leader in many things, but the rest of the world has great accomplishments also. And you should never look down on these other cultures or assume that the United States is ahead of everyone else. So, anyhow, this was just such an interesting article.
Very well written. One thing I wanted to talk about too, and we've shared about this in the past, but this summer specifically, the demand for travel has been so high, and we're seeing lots of destinations be at be full for the entire destination, not just a hotel, but the destination. So, just one tip for anyone out there who's still trying to plan a summer getaway or early fall getaway, I would really suggest you get to it and plan as soon as you can, because this has been a tremendous year for travel in a positive way. Demand has been really high, and we're seeing lots of sold out properties and even destinations at some time. So, always say book early when you can, but now book if you want to go, because otherwise you're probably not get to go where you want to go if you haven't made your reservations at this point.
And that kind of travel boom adds its pressures around the world. Another story Mike and I were looking at recently had to do with Airbnb hosts, I guess, in Barcelona, was it, in Spain, and the sort of backlash against them by locals who resent the tourism and resent the use of properties for Airbnb, and it became violent. Now, that doesn't happen everywhere. But what does happen with some regularity these days are kind of minor flare ups. You see it on planes a lot, where people lose patience with each other or lose patience with the airline crew, right? And get into not necessarily fist fights, but at least shouting matches. And everyone is a bit on edge. I mean, right now, Mike and I think that it's because planes are so full and so uncomfortable.
I was just saying they've taken your leg space away to a large degree. They've got and the reason they've done that is to pack an extra row or two on every airplane. Now you're charged for luggage if you don't carry it on. So the carry-on space is at a premium, and people get really pissed off if you don't put your luggage in there the right way. And it's it is like a uh, what do you call it, a cauldron, right, when you get on a plane, because people are already, service might not be so great on U.S. carriers. You get in, your legs are jammed in there. You're trying to find space. You got people going the wrong way on the airplane when everybody's trying to get seated, trying to find extra space in the overhead bins. It is stressful. It's stressful, and that stress. I mean, these airlines have got to understand that while I don't think there's any excuse for anyone getting violent or getting overly upset, it does make the quality of the experience much lower. And that is a cost of doing these things, trying to earn these additional monies for extra seats or ancillary revenues for charging for luggage and so forth. And there's a cost to it.
I think the airlines actually, they've been spending a lot of time the last couple of years on customer service, on trying to make people, help their teams be more service oriented. What they could spend some time on now, I think, is training their crew to diffuse situations. Because what I see a lot as an Uber frequent traveler is I see the attitude of the crew or the mishandling by the crew actually inflaming these situations. And it's not their fault. They haven't been trained in this, and they're under a lot of pressure too. But I think it's an area where the airlines could do more to help. But look, we're in a boom time. As you said, locations are sold out, whole destinations are sold out. And there is part of the problem too. Some of the backlash we see, kind of like in Barcelona, you'll see it in Venice, or you'll see it now in Greece, where they're looking at limiting the number of cruise ships, is people feel that all of this tourism, over tourism, is costing them their local environment, right? Or their local culture. So there have been, isolated demonstrations and some pushback from people. And I think we all play a role in that. Our role, Mike and I, as travel professionals, is we've got to be more creative and thoughtful about where we send people in the world. In the old days, it was like sort of the same 30 locations: Rome, Venice, Paris, whatever. But now the world is so much bigger, so much more available to us. All of these TV travel programs, all of the internet postings have made it clear to us that there are beautiful places all over the world, many of which you've never even heard of. So we need to work to spread people out a bit more and not overcrowd these big famous destinations. And people like you, like our listeners, individual travelers, need to think about that too, is to get creative and adventurous and spread our footprints across the world instead of trampling this narrow path over the same number of destinations.
But we'll go back to the story, the story about Barcelona, and it was a group of unhappy people that live in Barcelona, and I bet you that half of those people probably were not born in Barcelona. Would just be my guess, but they were upset about real estate prices going up because people were buying real estate, renting them out as Airbnb type accommodations, which is look, it's a fair fact. I can appreciate it. But they also were concerned about overcrowding, too much tourism. But the way they went about their protest, which I wouldn't call it violent, but it was certainly annoying, were they were going to popular tourist restaurants and bars and escorting people with water pistols, right? I mean, can you imagine? There was even showed on the BBC. It showed a couple sitting there and they're having this nice dinner, and somebody comes up and shoots them from 20 feet away and just soaks the girl's hair. And and then they were standing out there, like really brazenly, like come out and do something. I don't know. It really left a bad taste in my mouth. And then spray painting signs, go home tourist, and look, the reality is tourism represents 10% of the European GDP. I mean, it is a huge piece of the entire uh, uh, gross domestic product of the entirety of Europe. In Barcelona, I would bet you it's probably 60-70% of their GDP. And that just, there's got to be a balance, as always. But at the same time, you don't want to trust me, those people that live in Barcelona do not want to turn the tourism switch off, because if they do, they're going to be in really bad shape, because a lot of their revenue comes from tourism. Um, so I think there's probably a better way to express your uh, dissatisfaction in over tourism rather than attacking people who are there having a good time and spending their money with you.
Yeah, look, there has to be a balance. There was a time when many locations in the world begged for this kind of tourism success, and now, some of them are victims of their own success. Some of them did not take the planning trouble and the regulatory trouble to protect their own. I mean, we see this in the Caribbean with a couple of Caribbean governments now. There's a backlash against the cruise industry and other tourism there, because they never thought it would get this big, right? But yet, without tourism, those countries would have been in a lot of trouble.
And would be today. I mean, the hurricane just came through St. Vincent, and unfortunately, there were some people that passed away from that. But it destroyed a lot of their infrastructure. It's going to take them, years to build back to where they were, but certainly months before they could expect to have any tourism. And tourism's, I don't know, 90% of their GDP. I mean, but trust me, there are plenty of people in that market to James and myself and to our organizations about, please bring more tourists to us. There are these tourism boards that are very active that would love to have your money.
And just to give it all a little perspective, I was telling Mike, there was an archaeological dig years ago of a Roman ruin, and they uncovered a wall, and the wall had graffiti on it, and the graffiti translated to essentially "Yankee go home," tourist go home, and that was 2,000 years ago. So this has always been part of the dynamic. The thing is that we have to work together in partnerships towards the best outcome for everyone.
Are you suggesting that the word Yankee was around 2,000 years ago? I think that would have been maybe before the U.S. was.
I don't know. You Southerners been around a long time. So one final thing I wanted to mention. TV has had such an effect on the travel industry. I mean, it is the advent of cooking shows and then travel shows, and people like the late Anthony Bourdain, and now Stanley Tucci, and many others who have opened up our minds and our eyes and our taste buds to the possibilities of the world, and really, really transform the travel industry. I mean, you can trace a bar chart, with the expansion of tourism against the sort of popular culture really starting to talk about all of these places. So I'm always on the lookout for a good travel related show. And over the last holiday week, I found one that I've been binge watching. And I happen to love British television for whatever reason. I like the sensibility. And they have a program called The Hotel Inspector. And it's very much like Bar Rescue here in the United States, or, yeah, Kitchen Nightmares, um, like that, where this hotel professional, a woman, a tough Scottish woman with a no nonsense kind of attitude, goes into hotels around the UK, small hotels and guest houses, and tells them what's wrong and how to fix it. Oh, it's a particularly great show. And I like it for its behind the scenes look at running a hotel and what the issues are and what's important for good tourism and for good traveling customers and for good hotels. So if you get a chance, they're not an advertiser. We don't get any money from them. But if you get a chance, seek it out. It's on Prime Video, The Hotel Inspector. Let us know if you find it as amusing as I do.
I will check that out. I think I've seen one episode a while back, but I will definitely check that out. Well, excellent. Well, I think this is going to bring our podcast for this week to a close. And once again, thank you very much for listening in and sharing out about our podcast. We've got a nice growth in subscribers. So hopefully that growth will continue through the summer. And look forward to being back with you in 3 weeks. We're going to take a little break over the hot summer months, but we'll be back with more guests and more content. And also we'll have the winner of our giveaway to announce.
That's right. Our all-inclusive vacation for two. And may I suggest, while we're on hiatus for a couple of weeks, if you're looking for something to listen to and we're not there for you, go back on our prior episodes and see if you didn't miss something, or maybe you weren't around for our first season. There's a lot of really good stuff there. So go to notouristallowed.com and you can scroll through and maybe listen to one you missed.
Well, great. Thanks so much for your time, everyone. Have a great next few weeks and look forward to talking to you soon.
Thank you.